You know, it is so easy for anyone to make their marriage look so amazing for a snapshot or even a short video on Facebook. But that's surface level fluff. I mean, it's great to have those things. Those are the things that make marriage exciting, but those are not the things that make marriage last. Mm-hmm. What makes marriage last is the stuff that you work on underneath. Working through things that would otherwise tear marriages apart, but you found a way to make it happen. You find a way to make it work. And what do we call that? We call that raw marriage. Working through the gritty stuff in marriage so you can keep enjoying those exciting and fun things.
Yep, raw marriage.
But sometimes it takes work.
It does.
And sometimes it takes getting to the topics that no one wants to talk about. But you know what?
And more than sometimes, it's all the time. It needs work.
We got to talk about it. Okay. And so today in raw marriage, we're going to talk about what's called the perfectionist lens.
And what is the perfectionist lens?
The perfectionist lens is whenever you always see the things that are lacking. Whenever you see something and there could be 101 things that were done right and 2 things that weren't quite up to what you were expecting, and you focus on those 2 things. Okay. That's the perfectionist lens. Let me show you an example. I'll work on something here real quick. Got any other questions about the perfectionist lens?
No, but I'm just trying to figure out. I mean, okay. Nobody's trying to be perfect.
Okay, take a look. And I'm going to show this to the viewers as well. What do you see on this white canvas? What do you see?
It's black.
Yeah, that's pretty nasty, right?
Not really.
Not really? I mean, if it's supposed to be perfectly white, isn't that kind of nasty?
It's depending on what you are looking for in that.
It's supposed to be perfectly white canvas.
Oh, well then, it has black on it.
Yeah, okay. So what if I show you this? Now what do you see?
A spot on the white canvas.
And that's the point. Okay. See, our eyes are drawn to the imperfection. What we just saw is that the whole canvas was a wreck. It was a mess. There were smudges all over it. It was dirty. It was not what we wanted. It was not perfect. It wasn't even close to perfect.
Nobody's perfect.
However, when we see this canvas that's almost perfectly white and there's one smudge on it, what do you see? Your eyes are drawn to the imperfection. There's this entire canvas of perfect white, but one smudge, and the one smudge is what we look at.
Yeah.
So,
and for some people, that bothers them.
But why do we do that in marriage? Why do we look at the things that aren't quite right, even if our spouse has done a whole slew of things that are wonderful, and one thing that didn't quite measure up?
It's probably because it's the one thing that bothers the other person.
But is that how we should love?
And should marriage just be about love?
Yes, it should. Not just about love,
That's
but love is the core.
Love.
I mean, that is the one thing that Christ told man to do with his wife.
Yes.
Well, I actually told him to populate the earth. You know, there is that. Mm-hmm. But in the New Testament, he says, husbands, love your wives.
Yes.
Serve your wife with love.
What I just said, though, but love is not the only thing in the marriage.
Perhaps the first thing.
Okay.
You know, that's funny that you say that, because I have talked with an elder of one of the churches that I attended, and he says, what does love have to do with marriage? Love doesn't have anything to do with marriage. I'm like, what? I mean, have you read Ephesians? Yeah, you've got to have that love in your marriage. And love is not just always that exciting, that, hey, we're out having a great time and having fun and doing selfies together and everything, smiling and showing the whole world that we're having a great time. Again, those things are important. They are. I'm not downplaying them at all.
Okay.
But that's sort of a byproduct of doing the hard stuff in marriage. You do the hard stuff. You work on the hard stuff.
Okay.
And then you have the fun stuff. A lot of times people try to build a whole relationship on the fun stuff, and then whenever life gets hard, they don't know how to work through things.
Yeah, but see, then also what happens is when you try to build your relationship just on the fun things, you're gonna have to keep up that. You're gonna have to stay doing fun things all the time. And then when crisis happen, grief, whatever, all kind of different things, it's like being high. Of course, you can't stay up there. You're gonna have to get back to normal.
If I don't know how to go through winter with you, how can I keep you warm whenever winter hits? Right?
Yeah.
You know, we look at how God loves us, right? And there are so many things. We try real hard. I mean, we try real hard. Some of us try super hard, and some of us, we don't even know what to try. But we do have the heart to do what's right in God's eyes. And we always fall short. We always fall short. In what we say and what we think and what we fail to do, we fall short, and that's what's called sin. Right? But
Missing the mark.
But whenever it's time for God to extend grace to us, He doesn't look at that blemish. He doesn't look at that one smudge on our white canvas. In fact, for Him, the whole canvas is smudged. Even if we do have this white spot in the middle, that's that one clean spot, the whole canvas is smudged.
Okay.
And yet, He still loves us anyway, and He encourages us to love each other the same way. Don't highlight the imperfections. Praise the person for the good things that they do. Acknowledge the good things that they do. You know, whenever we have communion and we have the Lord's Supper, the one thing Christ said was, do this in remembrance of me. Acknowledge what I've done for you.
Yes.
Right? He didn't even say thank me for what I did. He just said acknowledge. Do this in remembrance of me. So as we take a look, as we try to apply godly concepts and Christian concepts to our marriages, are we able to just live in a moment in remembrance of what our spouse did, the good things, the loving things that our spouse did? And are we able to look at their heart? Are you able to look at your wife's heart? Are you able to look at your husband's heart and say, this is what he was intending? Yeah, I know he put way too much caramel frosting on my caramel cake, but wow, he made me a caramel cake from scratch. I know she burnt my ribeye to a crisp. That never happened, by the way. But if it did, should I be grateful that she tried to cook me a steak? Or should I condemn her for burning it? You know, in the long term, what's really going to make your marriage last?
But it sounds as if, are you always looking for affirmations? Are you always looking for, even if the person is having a bad day or a negative day? Because again, not every day is going to be perfect. So even if that person is having what they consider not a positive day and they're having a negative day, and you just happen to be in that moment, there is a negative day, and they're not giving you affirmations all the time, it's okay. Because that person is having a not so great day. And that person, whether it's the male, the husband, the woman, the wife, and they have not had a chance to tell their spouse, okay, I'm having this type of day. They might have got up in pain, or they might have got up with a thought in their head, and they went into prayer. But still, as they casting it down and try to get the thought out of their head, or they're in pain, they don't know how exactly to deal with that. And the spouse says something wrong. Now, they may or may not be meaning to say anything negative. However, they're trying to deal with the pain or having that negative day, and the spouse just said something wrong.
So have you,
in the midst of that,
have you heard of the emotion bank? The concept of the emotion bank. So the concept of the emotion bank goes like this. Your spouse has an emotion bank right here, right there in their heart. And you can either make deposits into it or you can make withdrawals. The way you make a withdrawal is by saying something negative, something critical, something that's, I'm not going to say mean, but, it just doesn't feel right, doesn't feel good to your spouse. Like, let's say she did burn my ribeye. Again, never happened. But if she did, and I just wail on her verbally for burning my steak, that is a major withdrawal from her emotion bank, because she's going to feel worse. She's going to feel down. She was probably already feeling down if she burnt my meal, but for me coming down and berating her for it makes her feel even worse. It's a major withdrawal from the emotion bank. Now, the way to make a deposit into the emotion bank is doing something nice, doing something kind. That's why they have these apology bouquets at flower shops, because that's supposed to help the man fill her emotion tank again. It's become so cliche that I don't even know that it works anymore. But it's a kind word, a compliment, a hug, how was your day? Compassion, showing that you actually care about what she went through today. Finding out, look, I just want to hear about your day. Stuff like that, trying to connect with her at an emotional level. These are the kinds of things that will put stuff into her emotion bank. It's a deposit. Now, what you're saying is, there might be a day where, look, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. I stubbed my toe. I missed my ride. I got bawled at work for being late because I missed my ride. I spilled my coffee all over my white shirt. All these things just went wrong. Mm-hmm. I lost my biggest client. I got in a wreck on the way home. And by the time I get home, no, I am not feeling, you just don't feel like providing the affirmations that would put things into her emotion bank. You might even say something or just not do something. You can make a withdrawal from the emotion bank by not doing something, right?
Okay.
I walk into the room and I don't say hi because I'm still caught up in my head about this horrible day that I've had. I might not even recognize that I did that, but it makes her feel a certain kind of way because I just ignored her. That's a withdrawal from the emotion bank. So the reason why we talk about it in terms of emotion bank is that every day cannot be like that. I cannot make withdrawal after withdrawal after withdrawal. Think about what happens in your bank account if all you do is make withdrawals.
After a while, you don't have anything left in there.
Yeah, you actually get an overdraft fine, mm-hmm. Right? And whenever that happens with your emotion bank, you don't want to get there with your spouse. You want to have so much surplus of emotion that you're not going to lean on that and say, well, I'm going to intentionally make a withdrawal today. But you will inevitably make a withdrawal from that emotion bank. You will. But if you have put enough into her emotion bank and you accidentally, inadvertently, unwittingly make a withdrawal, you still have a lot there that she can draw and say, well, I know his heart. He must be having a bad day, but I know his heart.
And understand this. The 5 love languages. A woman may not need affirmation. That may not be her love language. So you don't have to keep affirming her.
That's true. That's absolutely true.
It might be the man, the husband's, his love language, but it may not be hers.
How about this, though? Mm-hmm. You should work to keep affirmations off of their love language list. You know what I mean by that? See, one of the things we teach in our ministry is that the 5 love languages, they are a reflection of what's lacking in your marriage at the time. Mm-hmm. Or actually what's lacking in your life. And we've seen it before. We've seen where a particular person might have been in a sexless marriage before. And they're hungry for physical touch. And then the divorce happens, they recover from that, they get into a new relationship, and in that new relationship, she's actually very amorous, and he's very amorous, and that need for physical touch is being satisfied in abundance, and they get married, and in a year down the road, you know what? Physical touch is no longer at her number 1 position in her love language. Why? Because that is being met. It is being fulfilled. Mm-hmm. But this new guy, he doesn't give her gifts all that often. In fact, he never gives her gifts. He's always doing the physical touch. He's always giving affirmation. And while those things feel good, he doesn't give her any gifts. And before you know it, gifts start to become more important to her in the love language assessment because that's what's lacking in her life
or
now.
Quality time. Don't leave out quality time.
It was just an example.
Oh, okay.
Just an example.
Okay.
So as we look at affirmations, whenever I say try to keep it from being at the top of her list, if you're keeping it off the top of your spouse's list, that means that you are continuing to provide it in abundance and they're not hungry for it. Because the danger that happens, you never, ever, ever want the world to give your spouse more affirmation than you do.
And I see it all the time. That does happen.
Yeah. Because what happens when that happens?
Why she need him for? Why does he need her for? I mean, I'm just saying that's the way a person was going to start thinking, because if it starts to happen, then they want to go off and think, let me get in that situation. And that, like I said, the grass is not greener. It really is not. A lot of people think, okay, let me just go ahead and get into another relationship. Don't do that. Stop doing that. People need to stop and realize if a relationship is not working. I know we talk about, again, this is raw marriage, but if a relationship is so much to the point where there's so much other things is going on and you actually have an out to get out of the relationship, and a biblical out, I'm just gonna put it that way, of the relationship, and you get out of that relationship, do not jump into a next relationship. Go through the process. And I'll tell you one thing, the process is rough. I actually have a t-shirt. I know they make t-shirts for everything. However, the t-shirt says trust the process. The process is not nice, but it's needful, because you need to make sure that you are whole. Stop bringing your baggage. I know we want to just keep the past things and stuff like that. I do know that I'm just an avid person that loves to read, so I have a whole library of different books. But I do have one book in particular that's talking about drop off your baggage. You really do need to stop bringing in baggages from old relationships. Just if the relationship is gone and it's just let it lay. Quit getting your shovel and bringing up, digging up dead stuff. Let dead stuff stay dead.
So here's the thing. Most of the time, people's baggage is invisible and weightless until something triggers it and brings it out. The question then becomes, how do you prevent yourself? How do you keep from bringing baggage along? I mean, you could be married for years, and then something will trigger something, and that monster comes out of the baggage that you didn't even know that you had.
Yes, and if it does pop its ugly head, what you turn around and do is knock it out, bury it, and walk away.
Metaphorically, that sounds great.
Yeah.
There is a process that we counsel and how to identify what has, how to identify where your trigger points are, where your baggage has been inserted into your life, and then what could actually bring it out. Whenever you realize these things, usually we go through that with someone who's single, and it's a way to prepare their heart to help them be the right person for someone else. That's a major part of the process of recovery. Whenever you mention that sometimes people get out of a marriage thinking that they're going to go to where the grass is greener, but they realize they fail to realize that they're bringing along the rotten grass with them. Yeah. And so whenever they go to greener grass, when they go to that greener grass, they plant the same rotten seeds that made the first marriage atrocious.
Yeah.
There's one thing that's common in every single one of your relationships, and that's you.
Yeah, that is you.
So before we start blaming our spouses for things, why don't we take a look internally and say, what am I doing? What am I reacting to? What am I saying, doing, or not doing that's starting to cause a rift in my marriage?
And that's why I said to a person before they try to get into relationships, people are going to be lonely. I know you're going to be, there's several things that you're going to be. However, trust the process. Go through the process. Heal. Be delivered. All the above. Before you get into this other relationship with someone, make sure you are whole.
Now get
and
this.
If you're not, then you need to definitely work on yourself.
Yes. Now this smudge, the smudge that we focus on whenever everything else is just pristine perfect, sometimes that smudge is an indication of baggage that we're carrying along.
Yeah.
It might be that, the person who left the smudge, that they don't even see the smudge. But to you, it's the only thing that you can see because of the baggage that you're still carrying. You don't even realize that you're carrying it, but it has gotten under your skin to still see that smudge there. It could be dirty socks left on the counter. Neither one of us do that. Let me promise you that. But let's say that maybe that is, look, in your past, someone who really hurt you had the habit of leaving the dirty socks on the counter, and every time that issue was brought up, it turned into a fight where somebody got hurt, and that someone was usually you, hypothetically speaking. So now if I left my socks on the counter, I might think, oh, that's not a big deal. They were only there for 2 minutes while I got a drink of water after. But the thing is, it was a trigger for her. It was baggage that she didn't even realize was there, and I triggered it and caused an issue that I didn't even know that I was doing. These are the sorts of things that we dig into to help understand where rifts are, where misalignment is, and help you put that baggage aside. Like you said, knock it out. A lot of prayer along with that too. Because those a lot of times that baggage, they're demons with strongholds in your life. And as you know how to address them, as you know how to work through them and work past them, then you become a stronger couple. Again, it's that raw marriage, working through things. That's the beautiful part of a raw marriage, where you can work through things.
But to work through things, there is making sure that in your relationship, you put everything out on the table. We counsel people to let them know. As we're counseling the premaritals, we let them know if there's anything in that moment, take it out and put it on the table, because you need to talk about it. There is so many different couples that we have had a chance, like I said, to do the premaritals, and when we tell them that, it's, some of them be like, I didn't think about that. Or some of them be like, you know what? We have already talked about X, Y, and Z. And I'll be honest with you, especially with those couples that we did the premarital counseling with, and they said they have talked about X, Y, and Z, I'm almost willing to bet they're going to have a long, beautiful, and prosperous life, because they took everything out of their pockets, their purses, and they put it on the table and said, hey, you know what? Let's talk about it. They're not holding anything back from each other. That's what you need in a marriage. Not to hold back anything.
Bring everything into the light.
Yeah. Because why would you... that means everything. And if you come into a relationship... and I know we're probably going to talk about this more in more different podcasts and stuff. But if you come into a relationship and you come into and baggage could be anything and everything. I'm not trying to call kids baggage. However, if you come into a relationship, whether you have children or your spouse has children, you need to talk about that. That's another thing you put out on the table. You need to know, how are they co-parenting with the ex or former or whatever you want to call that, your past person. You need to make sure that you have a chance to, when you're putting everything, like I said, on the table, ask about how you're co-parenting. Or even if you're able, the person's able to have a relationship with the other person. If they don't, I think a lot of times it's gonna be very important for you to talk about everything.
It is, and one of the things I want to emphasize here is that whenever we help someone through premarital, we are not trying to help them predetermine everything that's going to happen in their marriage. We're not preparing them we're not giving them the skills to work through everything. We're giving them the foundation to work through anything. I'm saying. Okay. Because there's so much that can happen. Like the example that you just used. How are you co-parenting with your ex? Well, I guarantee you the dynamics of that are going to change whenever you get into a relationship serious, and when you marry and that marriage is going well, that co-parenting dynamic with the ex is going to change dramatically.
Yeah, and it should change, but the way it should change is now that former ex, again, whatever you want to call them, should be able to know there's somebody else that's going to be in her or his, in the life of the person, and go with the flow. If they can't go with the flow, then there's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a huge problem.
Typically, there usually is.
Yeah.
Usually is.
And a lot of people, and I have seen it. A lot of people are getting divorced because of that. And they really are.
That is a shame.
Because they just can't work it out.
That was something that's just another one of those things that can be talked about. And if you haven't talked about it in premarital, still you can talk about it now. There is no reason why you cannot bring it into the light and work through it now. Being able to do that is what will set holy matrimony apart from just your common everyday marriage. Now,
put everything on the table.
And in covenant, not just in covenant with your spouse, but in covenant with God. If you are in holy matrimony, you are in covenant with Him too.
You're in covenant with God first, and then your wife.
Oh, absolutely.
He absolutely is the top, and then everything else follows.
And I'm talking about the three-stranded cord.
I know that.
All the, sometimes people use that as leverage that as a ceremony within their wedding. Two strands, they can be broken fairly easily.
Yeah.
The third strand provides strength, especially when the two strands are interwoven around that strong strand of God.
Yeah.
And whenever you're focusing on that, when you're focusing on honoring Him, then it becomes paramount to work through the issues. And there are ways, even if the ex is ungodly, that doesn't keep you from being godly. Even if the ex is walking in a different path, that does not keep you from walking the right path as God would have it for you. We've kind of gone around on a few different topics here. It's all focused around that perfectionist lens. Are you able to see the good things that are in the marriage, or do you focus on the imperfections? I'm not saying that you ignore the imperfections, because God doesn't ignore our imperfections. He just washes them away with the Son's blood, right?
He does.
He dispenses grace upon us such that we don't have to face the consequences of those sins. But how many times do we condemn our spouse for that smudge that remains on the canvas? Let's stop doing that. Let's acknowledge the good things that our spouse does. It's not a matter of affirming them all the time, but it is a matter of affirming them more than we criticize. And if we can get to that, wow, outdo the rest of the world when it comes to affirming your spouse. Don't let anyone do a better job at that than you. And so with that, I think we're going to shut it down for the evening.
Sure.
Yeah, let's get this out and let people hear it. We are Rob Hollis,
Winona Hollis,
my relationship experts, and we're here to help you make love last
a lifetime.